Today the topic is builder design pattern. Okay, so let us start with that. So firstly, let's start with what is builder design pattern. Okay, so previously we had studied factory, right? So factory was a tool to help you create objects. Builder is a similar such design pattern. It also helps you in creating complex objects. Okay. So this will make your life easier if you are creating an object which has a lot of fields, lot of entities to set. So builder is used in those cases. And we will walk through what builder design pattern is from end to end. But before that, we will take a very simple example to understand what is a builder design pattern. Okay. So let us take an example that you have a class, simple, let's say you have abstract class hot beverage, okay, which has some fields, and then you have abstract method. And two classes, tea and coffee, let's say they implement hot beverage, which means they have to call the abstract method and define it. So you can see like ingredient for tea, like set ingredient is the abstract method. For tea class, it is being set to tea leaf, whereas in coffee class, it is being set to coffee powder. So this is a very simple example, just to start things up so that the fundamental of builder is clear. Then we'll move to more real life example. Okay, so this is a very simple setup. You have two classes, tea and coffee. They inherit a parent class called hot beverage. Hot beverage is the abstract class, which has a few fields and one abstract method. And you would do something like this, where t equal to new t, t dot milk quantity, you would set it to something, 50 ml, let's say, sugar quantity, heat quantity, ingredient quantity, and then that's it. So you created an object and then you defined the fields, right? So this is the problem that we are talking about. Okay, let us take one more look. So you had two classes, there were multiple fields that had to be set for their objects to make sense. But without any design pattern, what happened that you created a empty instance with no field set, then you started setting the fields, and it is on responsibility of the user that you are setting all the right fields. If you don't set, then the tea may not be valid. For example, let's say somebody forgets to set milk and water, right? Then the tea won't make sense. Okay. And this is a very hypothetical example. We can compare it to, let's say, HTTP request body generator. And in a HTTP request, let's say URI is not there, but body is in a post method, URI is not there, but body is defined. That won't make sense. So ideally, you should not even be able to create an object for that. Now, the problem is, what if we offload all of these in constructor? Then that also doesn't make sense, because tea can exist without milk, right? Water, sugar, and tea leaf is enough. Tea can exist without sugar also. So how many combinations of constructors will you define? That becomes another problem, right? And imagine, this is a very simple example. When it gets complicated on complex objects that we deal in production, then how many constructors will you make, and how will you make sure that whenever an object is created, that object makes sense? So far, any questions? So the problem statement is clear. For example, there is a very complex object which has a lot of fields to be set for that object to make sense. You can't have a constructor with so many fields. Even if you do so, all of them may not be mandatory. If there are some optional constructor parameters, you may have to define multiple constructors, one with 2 argument, one with 3 argument, one with 4, 5, 6. How many of those will you make, right? If there are a lot of fields. So this is the problem that we are dealing in builder design pattern. Okay. So when you want to create an object of a class which has a lot of entities, and there are multiple permutations and combinations for valid objects and invalid objects, then how do you enforce this, that a user cannot create an invalid object? For example, in this case, water is missing, right? So if water is missing, I'm still able to create a tea. Now, is it valid? Is it not valid? Nobody knows. There is no rule defined. Nothing is defined here. Okay. All sort of combinations are possible right now. So this is the problem that we are dealing with. Same thing with the coffee class, right? I have just shown inheritance uh, just because to basically make it more general, but it can happen even in a non-hierarchical structure. Let's say just one class which has a lot of fields. Okay, this is true for both cases.